Hi there, I'm Jake. Welcome to the Blind Eternities Tavern. You know, Magic the Gathering is not the only trading card game I play. I actually play a bunch of them. But if I've been playing Magic the longest, the game I've been playing second longest has got to be Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh! With the very first English release, using my starter deck Yugi against my brother's starter deck Kaiba. And the game has changed a lot since then. But you know, those first few sets that they released still hold a lot of nostalgia for me. And so I was really excited in 2019 when Konami announced that they were making a new product, a new format, Speed Duel. And sure, Speed Duel has some issues, but it got me thinking about how we might implement something like this for Magic. Can we fix some of the issues that Speed Duel had and implement it in another game? So pull up a chair and have a seat at the table, and whether you're a button mash hack and slash controller bash or a meeple moving mastermind of maps, mats, and minis, if you ruffle at the awful ruffle shuffle scuffle, or if you're a click clack pick attack number ball luck sack, we're all here for the same reason. I'm Jake. Let's talk games. To begin this discussion of Speed Duel, I think we have to begin with nostalgia. Ultimately, this is a game built on nostalgia. If you are interested in playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Super competitively at high levels, the full game is still available. But this product, this format, is specifically designed for those people who want to look back. And I think when we talk about nostalgia in Yu-Gi-Oh! There's a few different categories of nostalgia that we need to cover. The first is the people that are nostalgic for the TV show. The characters, that style of play, the gotcha moments, the suspense. There's a nostalgia there. And there's a lot of people that grew up watching this on TV and are really excited to live in that world. Then there's a nostalgic aspect of the gameplay. The people that want to go back to the days of those early cards that didn't have walls of text on them, that had a lot of back and forth, and there was a lot of power in standing up a big tower with no abilities. But I think there's a third aspect to that nostalgia as well. And that's the people that are nostalgic for that period in their life, without jobs, without bills or taxes, when they could sit and play cards with their friends. And that's an aspect of nostalgia that can't really be captured. So let's talk about where Speed Duels succeeds in this nostalgia, as well as where it fails a little bit. In the success, I think that they were able to capture some of those characters and the abilities that those characters had in this separate category of cards that were introduced in Speed Duels. Technically, they were introduced in Duel Links. You'd play as a character with a specific ability, but now they were printed on cards. And at one point, or multiple points during a match, you'll be able to flip that card up and activate your character's specific ability. You have the Heart of the Cards. You have Kaiba's ability to dominate the board using dragons. You have all of these different specific abilities that these characters had to always draw into the cards that they need to capture that specific spirit of the deck that they're playing. And I think Speed Duels does that really well. Now, unfortunately, this isn't an aspect in the original rules of Yu-Gi-Oh! So the people that are looking for that traditional experience get a little bit left behind. Now, when you add on to that the fact that the rules set of Speed Duel is slightly altered to be more in line with Duel Links and less in line with the actual big game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I think this really does feel a little bit cut off from those people that really enjoy playing GOAT format. And finally, if you're playing competitively in Speed Duel, you have to only use Speed Duel cards. You can't go back into that shoebox in your closet that has all your old Metal Raiders cards and pull out the ones that you want to use in your Joey deck, because they don't have the little Speed Duel marking on it. So if you want to play the game, you have to re-buy your entire collection. And I think that just feels a little bad. So let's take some of these lessons, some of this structure, And I'm not going to get into the product release schedule and some of the other missteps that I feel were made along the way that made Speed Duel a little bit clunky, notwithstanding the aspect of the game that were cut off because of COVID in the middle of it. But I want to talk about how we can apply this to a game like Magic the Gathering. How would we approach making a Speed Duel style game that works with Magic? If we were to go back and look at those initial Magic sets, how would we curate them to make a playable product that captures some of those aspects of nostalgia? So when we talk about the early days of Magic, I think this means different things to different people. But for some of us, it's a stack of cards in a rubber band with worn corners and faded, scuffed faces. It's a collection of cards that are low-powered by today's standards, and mostly important as gameplay pieces. There are formats in Magic specific to these eras. You see old school Magic in 93, 94, or 93 to 95. There's a variety of different cutoff dates for that. And I think if we were to make a Speed Duel in Magic, we would want to honor that. But there's a couple of extra hurdles that we experience in Magic that Yu-Gi-Oh! Just doesn't have to deal with. The first is that value of old cards. The old cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! That hold value are collectible because of the specific printing or the specific art that is on those cards. The old cards in Magic that are valuable because of, one, their power level. They tend to be extremely powerful, sought-after cards, but two, because of the reserve list. This limited printing of them prevent them from being printed into a lower price point over time. So for this old school format, I foresee a couple of issues that we might run into. If we take some of the decks that are made in old school Magic as a template for what people would want to do, some of those cards are in the thousands of dollars. So we'd have to leave off some of those reserve list cards, or change the back on those cards to print them like they did for the 30th anniversary as unplayable proxies that will still be used in every Commander game and in every version of casual cubing or Magic play. If Wizards decides that ultimately they are okay with that, breaking the reserve list to reprint these with a different back so they are not legally Magic cards, I think that we could actually capture some of that old school Magic feel and faithfully reprint those early sets. I would love to see a Speed Duel Magic that was printed as just the collector's edition box with a different back on it. Every card from the early days of Magic printed as one-ofs, and you can pick up some of those other old cards to fill in the gaps and get that nostalgic play going. There's a lot of people that I don't think have ever played classic Magic in this way. There's no format really that still exists that is easily accessible, that allows you to have that back and forth slugfest that was early Magic, when creatures were bad and spells were busted. But now we run into the other issue. Because aside from just reprinting old cards and allowing people to play old school Magic a little bit easier, I think we might tackle some of the other things that Speed Duel tried to do. I think we might talk about some of the missteps in early Magic that we might fix by bringing in some slightly more modern cards. Now, obviously, if we were to do this, to make a Speed Duel Magic, I think it would be really cool to use those old borders, the original templating, and really give it that classic feel. But creating a new border or a new style, I don't think is as much of a turnoff as it once was, because there's a lot of people that are excited about getting new product and don't care so much about the way the cards themselves look. Because the other thing that Speed Duel did that was really exciting was introduce specific characters with abilities. And I think people have become accustomed to playing Commander with specific characters and specific abilities. And I think it'd be cool if we made an old school Magic throwback style game like that, to roll in some of those as optional rules. Aside from bringing back ante, I think we could lean into the Vanguard aspect of the game a little bit. Bring back some of those characters, so you're not just playing, your classic Millstone control deck. You're actually going back and you were playing a Mishra mill deck. You use those old Vanguard cards, or you make new ones with similar abilities, so that people have that characterization behind the decks that they play. And I know this is going to be a put-off for some people that want that really authentic classic Magic feel, but I think we want to try to do something a little bit new, something a little different. And in general, those old cards are still fairly accessible. Aside from the ones that are in the thousands of dollars, most of them are just a couple of bucks. So by introducing a few new products or a few new aspects to the game that come in these box sets, I think they become more appealing for veteran players that want to try something a little bit new. Ultimately, short of abolishing the reserve list altogether, I think there's going to be a lot of limits on a product like this, and as much as I feel a great nostalgia for the early days of Magic, I think people are going to feel connections in different ways to different products. And so for something like a Magic Speed Duel, being able to capture specific characters, styles, and eras that are close to people in other ways, I think would be a really successful way of approaching this, and I think it would be really cool to see some of these classic cards brought back in a new way. And I think that we could take some of the lessons from other products, from other games, and by rolling them into our own, we can make something really special. It's been nice talking to you.